because you can actually see how amazing of a person he is in his acting. It's just like, I've never met Denzel, but you can almost tell that Denzel is who he is. And I love that about him. And so when Chadwick passed away from colon cancer, and it was so many horrible things said about this man, about him losing that much weight. People were saying he was on drugs and all these sort of things. And it always reminds you that you do not know what people are going through. Like, you never know what people are going through. And this was a 4-year battle for him. So like, he was literally on set battling cancer. And most people didn't even know that he was going through all this. And so I think like that's one of the major lessons to take away from this. Like, even when people are being nasty, like, it's important to understand, like, you don't know what people are going through. You never know. And so, but seeing somebody that young, only 43, pass away from colon cancer, it was shocking. And I even said that. I even said, like, it was shocking just because you saw so much future in this man. Like, I was looking forward to more roles. And I don't know if you saw the recent Spike Lee movie that he did, but it was amazing too. 21 Bridges. It was a pretty damn good movie. So, you know, when you see somebody with so much potential and so much light in them, and then that light goes out, it's a reminder just to understand, like, you never know what people are going through. And also the importance of understanding that you don't know when your time is up. So stop living as if, you have tomorrow. Stop living as if tomorrow is promised. Like, live as if today is your last day. And I don't mean to live it with anxiety, but it's really important to understand that to live the life that you were prepared and born here to live, like to live with purpose and meaning, is so important. But we also talked about, colorectal cancer and how it's a major, major, major risk factor in the African American community. And I didn't get to go in sort of like a lot of detail as to why it's such a major impact in the African American community, because out of all the cancer, colon cancer is actually the 3rd highest cancer after, things like breast cancer and prostate cancer. Okay, so colon cancer is the 3rd leading cancer. And it was very personal for me when I heard the news, because my grandmother died when I was in the 10th grade of colon cancer. And I love this woman like nobody. I mean, I remember being 8 years old praying to God, like, do not let my grandmother die before I do. I remember doing that, like, at 8 years old. So, like, when my grandmother passed away, I mean, it wasn't just devastating to me, but it was devastating to our entire family, because she was the glue of our family. And that is truly what made me decide to go into healthcare at that time. Like, I knew at that point I was going to go into healthcare. And now being in healthcare in a very different way and space, and understanding that colon cancer is the 3rd leading cancer, it's also 20% more likely that African Americans will get colon cancer. Not only is it 20% more likely that African Americans will get colon cancer, but it's actually highly more probable that those types of cancer, or any type of cancer for that matter, is far more dangerous and far more fatal in African Americans. So that's sort of the topic I wanted to talk about today. Well, why is it that in African Americans, cancer, in particular, we'll talk about colon cancer, seems to be so severe, and it goes from stage 1 to stage 4 almost in warp speed. And so I want to talk about why that is. And so it can shed some light on maybe some habits that were passed down that we need to break that cycle. And because that's sort of what the knowledge I came into, because I was diagnosed with high blood pressure when I was 16. And I was shocked because like I had heard my grandparents with high blood pressure, but like I didn't think at 16, and I was an athlete. I only had about 5% body fat. I was really fit. I played 2 sports, and I was diagnosed with high blood pressure. And so in my mind, I chalked it up to heredity. But guess what? If you look at colon cancer, according to the National Institutes of Health, genetics only plays about 35% of a part in colon cancer. So you have to look at what is the other 70%. And for the most part, the other 70% is environmental. And when I say environmental, I mean the things we eat, the chemicals we put on our skin in terms of cosmetic and hygiene products, the air we breathe, the quality of water we take in, the anxiety and the stress that we put on our bodies. These are things that we can control. And so what I want to urge people to do and understand is that you still have power when it comes to a diagnosis. When you get diagnosed, you still have power. You still have the ability to make changes. You still have the ability to affect change. You know, one of the most profound losses I had was last month when I lost my uncle. And again, I lost my uncle to one of the top cancers, prostate cancer. And that was tough for me to watch, again, after watching my grandmother pass away from cancer at such a young age for me. And she was only 67 at the time. But it's important to understand that food has changed dramatically in this space and time, where we go from our grandparents, like in the 50s and 60s, to our parents in the 70s and 80s, to us in the 90s and 2000s. Like, food has made a dramatic shift. And that dramatic shift started after World War II, because like what they were doing was, what they did with World War II, they were trying to figure out, how do we feed soldiers when they're out? Meaning like when they're away in another country fighting a battle, because what they discovered is that a lot of soldiers were not dying because of bullets. They were dying because they were had malnutrition. Like, they didn't have proper nutrition. So they started to figure out, how can we come up with food for our soldiers? And the answer they came up was what is called MREs, or packaged food. And that packaged food later became processed food that we now have on our shelves, you know, in the form of box bags, cans, jars, things of that nature. You understand? So all of that has transitioned, but you have to understand that all of that food that is in box bags, cans, and jars that has an expiration date on it, all of that food has an expiration date on it because of why? Because it has a lot of food chemicals in it. Okay? And the other thing you have to understand about anything that is processed, meaning it doesn't matter if it's pasta, it doesn't matter if it's bread, it doesn't matter if it's, fruit in the form of applesauce. If it's going through a processing, they pull the fiber out of the food. And this is one of the number one things I talked about in the interview with Fox, is that especially in the African American community, we have a fiberless diet. We have a diet that has no fiber. And fiber is critical to our health in terms of, fiber feeds the good bacteria in our gut. So when you're going to the doctor and you take an antibiotic and it kills all that good bacteria in your gut, guess what? You could take a probiotic, but guess what the real probiotic is? The real probiotic is fruits and vegetables, nuts, seeds, because those are the only things that have fiber in them. Meat, dairy, processed foods do not have fiber in them, okay? Even that fiber that they put back into the food, they enhance the food with fiber. That is not the fiber that your body intended for it to have, okay? And so it's really important when you remove fiber from the diet, which is essentially the standard American diet, right? Because even when you're eating, let's say you go out and you grab a hamburger and fries, okay? The hamburger's meat, so the meat has no fiber in it. The meat also doesn't have much nutrition in it. Okay, you got a bun. That bun is processed. There's no fiber in it. It's also used with white bleached flour. Okay, and maybe they put some tomatoes and lettuce on there. Okay, then you have French fries. Okay, but understand this, and this isn't just about French fries, because people will consider, French fries a vegetable because it's potato. But anytime you put something in a vat of grease and you fry it, you have turned that food, that vegetable, into a junk food. So you have taken something that was once, like I've even seen avocado fried tacos, right? Once you take that avocado and fry it, it is now a junk food. It is not what it was intended to be. And what I mean by that is this. Let's say you were to take like a pot of greens and put it on a stove and cook those greens. The more you cook the greens, the softer they become. They're becoming soft because you're breaking down the fiber inside of the plant. You understand? So when you consume it, that fiber is broken down. It's not functioning. Okay? It's not going to do what it's intended to do. And guess what? That fiber is there to feed your good bacteria. That's why fiber is called prebiotics. Okay? So pre is before. All right? So prebiotics are the fiber that's in fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. Okay? Probiotic is the good bacteria. Okay? That's inside of your gut. Okay, it's supposed to be the good bacteria. So prebiotics, which is fiber, feeds probiotics, which is good bacteria inside of your gut. But if you don't give it prebiotics, which is fiber, if you don't consume that, you're not feeding the good bacteria inside of your gut. And guess what? 60 to 80% of your immunity, the immunity that protects you from viruses, the immunity that protects you from bacteria, the immunity that actually protects you from cancer, it will not function well. If 60 to 80% of your immunity is made in your gut and you're killing your good bacteria by starving it because you don't put enough fiber in your diet, and then on top of that, you're killing it because you're eating a lot of processed food, a lot of fried food, you're not going to have a healthy gut, okay? And when you don't have a healthy gut, what is going to happen is you're going to have digestive issues. You're going to have acid reflux. Okay, you're going to have H. pylori or Helicobacter pylori, okay, which is very uncomfortable, all right? You're also going to have digestive issues like processing your food, so you're not going to be able to break your food down. And if you can't break your food down, it means that you can't take the nutrients that's actually in the food, okay? So if the food is, even though you eat the healthiest food in the world, if you don't have good bacteria, if you don't have healthy digestion, it won't break down to this mush that it's supposed to be breaking down into. So you can be eating all the nourishment in the world, and if it's not properly broken down, you won't get any of that nourishment. So you will be malnourished, okay? And not only will you be malnourished, now, because you're eating all this processed food, you're going to start to get parasites. You're going to start to get yeast in the body. Okay, and these are the things that create cravings. And this is what makes it very difficult to not eat. This is why people overeat. This is why people essentially eat like cows throughout the day. They just graze. They eat small throughout the day. They can't stop eating throughout the day. It's because the parasites and the yeast are forcing you to. They've hijacked your taste buds. They've hijacked your brain. And they have you wanting to eat on a consistent basis. But the downside to it is this. Most people have between 10 and 25 pounds of undigested food inside of their gut. So just imagine that. Just go, next time you go to the gym, pick up a 25-pound weight, okay? Now, that weight is condensed, all right? So imagine 25 pounds of food just sitting inside of your gut. And people will say, well, that doesn't make sense. I would just have 25 pounds of food just sitting in my gut. Well, it makes sense because most of the people that when I'm working with them one-on-one, guess what? When I ask them how many bowel movements they have a week, most people at most say 7, which means they have 1 a day. Some people say every 2 to 3 days. So they're having like 3 bowel movements a week. All right. So Between 3 and 7 bowel movements is what I typically hear when I'm doing a consultation with somebody. But then I ask people, well, how many meals are you eating a week or a day? They say 3. I eat 3 meals a day. I'll say, okay, so that's 21 meals a week. All right. But you're only having 3 to 7 bowel movements. So I ask them, like, okay, where's the 14 to 18 other bowel movements? Because you're supposed to have a bowel movement every time you eat. And people think I'm crazy when I tell them I have 3 bowel movements every day, whether I'm detoxing or not. That's normal. Like, a lot of people will say, like, I've had people ask me, they've been doing the detox and they say, like, this is very uncomfortable, like it's making my work life horrible. And I'm like, well, what's going on? It's like, I'm having bowel movements uncontrollably. And I say, well, how many bowel movements are you having? They say, well, I'm having 3 a day. I'm like, that's normal. So just imagine 25 pounds of food just sitting in your gut, okay? But this is what you have to understand about that food sitting in your gut there for days. Imagine putting food in a pot, okay, on a hot summer day in the middle of the road, all right, on the concrete or the asphalt. Then you put the top on top of the pot, all right? You close it, all right? And then it's 97 degrees outside. And you leave it there for 3 days and then come back and open the top. What do you think that food is going to look and smell like? It's not going to smell good, right? All right. And this is why it makes sense. Like, the food doesn't smell good because it begins to rot and ferment. Okay. And that's exactly what it does inside of our bodies, because guess what? If you take our temperature, our normal temperature is around 97 degrees inside of our bodies. Okay, so food isn't supposed to sit in our guts for that long. Food is supposed to sit in our guts for maybe 3 to 4 hours. Okay, and then it's passed out. If food sits in your gut for just 3 to 4 hours, guess what? When you have a bowel movement, it actually won't smell. This is how I also know, like, when I'm doing consultations, I ask people, well, what does your bowel movement smell like? Could you sit in there with it? Would you invite somebody else in the bathroom if you were having a bowel movement? And they say, oh no, I would never do that. It tells you that the food is rotting and fermenting. Okay. All right. So another condition that you can have is something called SIBO. SIBO is small intestinal bowel obstruction. Okay. Essentially what SIBO is the bacteria that is in your actual colon. All right, so understand this. You have your digestive tract, your gut, starts with the small intestine, the large intestine, and then the colon. The colon is the place where you make the poo, and the poo is supposed to go out. It's at the end of the road, okay? So the bacteria in the colon is going to be very different from the bacteria that's in the stomach and the bacteria that's in the small intestine, okay? If you have a very unhealthy gut, the bacteria that's in your colon, that's designed to be there, will actually navigate upstream to the small intestine. Once that bacteria gets up to your small intestine, it can create a host of issues because that type of bacteria isn't supposed to be there. Okay, so you have a lot of people with SIBO, they'll have that. You have people who have what's called diverticulitis. And diverticulitis is these little pockets that form off of the bowels, okay? They're like little sacs where poo goes into these little sacs and they just sit there, okay? You have people who have things like polyps. Polyps develops as well. You have people who have gas, bloating, okay? Indigestion. I mentioned acid reflux, ulcerative colitis, irritable bowel syndrome. All of these things are a check engine light to let you know that there is something going on. It's essentially your body saying, hey, I don't know what you're eating. I'm not familiar with what you're eating, but I do know, like, it doesn't agree with us being here on this earth for a very long time. Okay? So it's really important to understand that a lot of times when you get these conditions, even if it's something as mild as gas, bloating, a food baby. A food baby is like, you wake up in the morning and you got a flat stomach, right? You can almost see a couple abs. And then by noon, you got a belly and you ain't even eat anything. That is a check engine light. You understand? Like that is a sign of your body saying there's something wrong with your digestion. And I can tell you this without any question, that if you want to heal the body, you have to always go through the gut. Healing begins in the gut. It's also where disease starts in the gut. Okay? So if, for the most part, when people have dis-ease in their body or disease in their body, it most likely started in the gut. You understand? And so if it started there, then it makes sense that if the problem started there, that's also where the solution begins as well. And this is what I'm really trying to tell people, especially in the African American community, because like I said, when it comes to any kind of cancer, but especially a cancer like colon cancer, unfortunately, not only when we get the cancer, we get it at a higher rate, but it's terribly more dangerous for us. It's terribly more fatal for us. Okay? So we have to make adjustments, and especially because in the African American community, the African American diet is dangerous for anyone. Okay? And a lot of that has to do with food inequality and food deserts that are in urban neighborhoods. But a lot of it is also tradition. We have traditions that we need to sort of revamp. Now we're on the cusp. Now we're in September. Next month's going to be October. Guess what we're going to be doing in October? Halloween. Everybody's going to be eating all this candy, filling their bodies with sugar. Okay? The next month after that, it'll be November. Everybody will be having Thanksgiving dinner. All these rich meals that have a lot of poor carbohydrates, a lot of processed foods, a lot of meat, a lot of dairy. Okay? Same thing. The next month after that, it'll be Christmas. We'll have several Christmas parties to go to. We'll also have our Christmas Day, where we'll also be eating a lot of the same kind of rich foods that kill our gut. Okay? We eat a lot of fried foods. And fried foods, like I said before, quite often when you're frying something, even if it's a vegetable, you are taking that vegetable and turning that vegetable into a junk food once you fry it. Okay? Even when you overcook something, when you boil something on high heat for hours, you kill that plant. It's no longer the plant it used to be. Most of the nourishment that was in that plant is now at the bottom of the pot. You understand? So unfortunately, the diet we eat is not consistent with a healthy lifestyle. And so we really have to make our soul food truly soul food. Because if soul food was really soul food, it would add life to us. It would make us live longer. It will make us happier. It will make us, more in tune with ourselves. It will make disease go away. It will prevent disease. That's what a true soul food diet should be, if we're going to name it that. And so that's what my drive, my purpose, my meaning is, to change not only the diet in the African American community, but change diets and how we look at food totally, because there are things that are being considered food today that isn't food. It is Franken food. It's not real food at all. Okay? And like I said, when it comes to colon cancer, which, unfortunately, Chadwick Boseman died from, it's something that quite often that when you go into traditional healthcare, there's not a lot of options. And the last thing you want to be told by a doctor is there's nothing else we can do for you. Because by the time they tell you that, it is going to be too difficult now to try to use herbs and plants to bring you back from stage 4 cancer. You don't want to wait until a doctor tells you there's nothing else we can do for you. There's something you can do right now. And the most important thing you can do right now is eat to live. That's the most important thing you can do. And I'm not just talking about the food that comes around through your tongue or across your tongue, but also, the the stresses the things that we watch, the things that we listen to, the things we put on our skin, all of these things matter. The people we surround ourselves with, because we take in their energy, we consume their energy as well. So it's really important to understand that, there are things we can do to prevent colon cancer. There are things we can do to make sure we have a healthy gut. You understand? But everything starts at the top and then works its way down to the bottom. And at the top of everything is what we consume. Again, and I'm not talking about just a plant-based lifestyle. I'm talking about stress. I'm talking about physical activity. You understand? So also exercise is important. I'm talking about getting fresh air. That's consuming also. I'm talking about consuming fresh water, the right kind of water. All of these things are very, very important. And so when you think about consumption from the standpoint of not as this joy or entertainment to make my taste buds dance, but think of it from the standpoint of self-care, because I truly believe that eating healthy is an act of self-love. And I think when we eat healthy, watching what we eat and feeling what we eat, we ultimately tell ourselves, by eating something healthy, hey, I love you. We tell ourselves that, I love you. I love you so much that I ate this today. I hope you'll enjoy it. It was created before you were ever a thing, not in the 1950s and afterwards. You understand? So, so there's a lot of big things we can do, but I highly recommend and encourage you guys to embrace the only diet that can not only prevent disease, but also can reverse a lot of conditions as well. I'm not only the president of what I preach, but I'm also a client. I would not have changed my philosophy on medicine had it not been for the fact that I had high blood pressure and I was having to take medication, and I went plant-based. I started using herbs, and the high blood pressure I was diagnosed at 16 with and have been living with for 10 years, a decade. And then all of a sudden for 3 months, I eat correctly. I eat plant-based. I detox. And in 3 months, I no longer have high blood pressure, and I've had it for 10 years. It changed my whole perspective on healing. It changed my whole perspective on how I look at the process of healing and what is actually medicine. And so it's really important to understand you cannot wait until it's too late. A lot of people are waiting till it's too late, because the unfortunate thing is there's not enough voices out there that are loud enough to help people understand that there's another way other than chemo, radiation. You understand? Most people don't know, and so that's why it's so important for you to seek knowledge and for you to embrace. Everybody's heard the slogan, food is medicine. But nobody, not enough people are doing the research to find out what that truly means, okay? Because the truth of the matter is, food has always been medicine. It is not a new thing. You can go back 10,000 years ago, and you will see people 10,000 years ago using herbal remedies to heal conditions. So food is medicine is not an alternative medicine. It is truly traditional medicine. Please embrace it, because I can tell you right now, if you go, it doesn't matter what your condition is. If you go into traditional medicine, it can remove the symptoms, which in acute setting is very good. If I step off the corner and get hit by a bus, do not take me to a herbalist. Take me to a hospital. I'm no fool. Take me to the hospital. And as far as acute medicine goes, You know, like the hospital is pretty damn good at acute medicine. Like, you know, I got shot, I fell off my bike, you know, things of that nature. Like, I want to go to the hospital. But in terms of like maintenance of health, in terms of like reversing conditions, everything currently is there to put a Band-Aid. It is there to treat the symptoms. It's not there to remove the cause. And if you don't remove the cause, you will be a client of medicine. You won't be actually getting medicine, okay? It's totally different. So I just wanted to drop in here today, drop a few jewels. I hope this is helpful. Take care of your digestive system. That is where your health begins. People are concerned about corona. People are concerned about the flu season coming up. 80% of your immunity starts in your gut, okay? So you solve 80% of the problem if you take care of this gut that you have inside of you. And like I said, you know, if you get sick, the first things you're going for is things like vitamin C. Guess where you find vitamin C? In plants. You're going for zinc. Guess where you find zinc? In plants. Okay? Antioxidants. Guess where you find those? Plants. And guess where you will not find those? Meat and dairy. They don't exist there. Fiber, you won't find that in meat and dairy. So if you really want to do something about your health in terms of prevention, you got to take care of this body first. You got to take care of this gut. And that comes with eating the right thing. Food is medicine. To go around that conversation and figure out, well, what particular supplement? No, you need to eat a variety of good fruit, okay? And then the right food. You understand? Herbs are a supplement to the right foods. Herbs will not work if you do not change your diet. That's why even when you do my detox, guess what? You still have to eat plant-based. If you do not eat plant-based, you will not get the full benefits of my detox. Herbs only work when you eat the right way. And so embrace it. I know it's hard to accept. It was hard for me to accept in the beginning, but I can assure you of this. On the other side of the discipline and the commitment it takes to live a healthy lifestyle, you will thank yourself. You will sleep better. Your libido will be better. Your energy will be better. Your skin will look better. Your digestion will be better. You'll look younger. You'll live longer. You'll be happier. And that is what it's all about. So, to your day, and until the next time, peace and blessings.